The first champion I played was VandeR, but the first champion I fell in love with was probably Xincha.
Back then, the meta was just 5 champions. There was no actual meta.
The first champion I played in ranked was Amumu, and I actually didn't play Amumu jungle, I played Amumu bot lane. I played Flash Ignite, and then at level 2 I'll just go all in and get a kill.
It was a 0 for me. I could have just played mid, jungle, top lane, bottom lane, support with him. He was good for everything.
The first champion I started playing was Jana. I think I played like more than 5k games. Running all over the map, and it was super fast, no one can catch me. It was just fun to play.
The first champion I started maining was Lee Sin. Because he's so versatile, like you can make flashy plays. Even if you fall behind, you have stuff to do with him. Like, just all around a solid champion.
Oh, there's the Q, and he gets the kick onto him as well, and that is typical Shock, ladies and gents.
My first champion I played, and I probably played for 300 games straight without touching any other champion, was Ashe. Even though I had some periods where I enjoyed playing like Akali and Jax because you could snowball out of control. And then I refound my love for AD carry when Vayne was released because she could kind of do the same.
Oh, he gets knocked back with the death sentence, connects onto Unlimited, that's one secured, the rest of Fnatic dive forward. Cyanide once again goes down as Reckless, flashes forward for the Lantern out. That is a 7-0 Vayne.
The first champion I really fell in love first was definitely Nidalee. I have around 500, 600 games in Season 1. I just felt so good on the champion, it was fun to jump around, and so it was definitely Nidalee.
Jak zaczynałem grać League of Legends, to moją pozycją był na midzie i przeważnie dysponowałem tylko mid lanerami i starałem się grać jak najlepiej z każdą postacią na midzie, ale głównie lubię najbardziej anime.
Like anime was the reason I started playing League. I think she's fun to play because she requires skill and you need to know how the matchup is played out, else you'll just get crushed.
Now Froggen's in trouble though. He's got that extra available, and in comes Shook to help out. The damage on Impaler is huge. Froggen just about gets away. Fantastic stuff from Alliance.
Shen was the first champion I fell in love with. I remember going into Champions League for the first time and I saw the ninja and I said, I don't want to be the standard guy who picks the ninja because it looks cool, but 20 seconds later I locked it in anyway. I didn't really know how to play him at all, I just loved the way he looked and the way he moved.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm joined by Martin the Fisher Lunga along with Millennium's Jay Ree as a special guest, and we're going to break down that win from the Super Hot crew in the last match. Guys, what did you make of Champion Select? A lot of late game comps going on for Gambit. Once again, also some elements in Super Hot crew's comp.
Right, so Millennium, yeah, you're right here. Gambit, sorry, they like to run these late game comps where often Genji will play Caitlyn. Now Lucian is gone. We see Rise from Kuban, again, a lot of late game focus. I don't really like the idea because Gambit as a team at the moment have a very hard time getting to the late game. I would actually like to see them pick some mid-game comps where it can compensate for the weak early mid-game they do have here. But I'm not sure what you think actually about the comps.
Yeah, I agree. Like instead of Caitlyn, I would like to see a Cork or something from Genja because it's just really strong. And yeah, that's it. Like they have like good picks, but they don't really play it as a team. They're really good.
All right, but yet in the beginning it wasn't going all bad for Gambit. They got first blood, they got first dragon, so not the worst start.
No. I mean, they had a good start, got an early dragon, got an early gold lead as well, but they don't use it for anything. And honestly, one of the reasons is the way they itemize is not optimal. First of all, if we just take Genja, health potion for the entire game. Doesn't even sell it to buy a ward, doesn't sell it to buy like a pickaxe going into a Last Whisper, doesn't sell it to buy a Zeal going into Phantom Dancer. He will only do it if he dies in his in-base anyway. He never recalls to go back and get a ward or get an item towards whatever he's actually building. So he delays his own power spikes constantly and makes him weaker because he needs to farm up all the gold. Secondly, Kuban gets a Catalyst, want to build Rod of Ages as early as possible on a Rise. You want to get it around 30, 40 minutes. He delays it because he builds a Glacial Shroud and gets a Rod of Ages like 19 minutes in. So they constantly delay the items, the power spikes, and therefore they never really have any impact in the mid game. And also, Edward, his first item.
Yeah, he bought Doran Shield for some reason. Like, I mean, it's good if you play 2v2v2 and you want to trade without attacks, but they use lane swap and the Doran Shield was totally useless.
So if you're the support, as what the Fischer was saying now, and you know there's a dragon fight coming up and you think your AD carry really should go on by, is that something you can communicate or is it not done?
Yeah, you should say that. I mean, they even have a late game comp, so they should just give up the Drake and you stall the game. And yeah, they should just base and buy in items instead.
We can actually just bring up the replay because it is around the dragon where Gambit wants to fight against Super Hot Crew, even though they don't actually have to. Because at this point, if you just look at the gold right here, Genja, he sits on 1,600 gold. This refuses to go back and buy before the fight. Super Hot Crew, however, on the other side has 1,600 gold as well on selfies. So in that case, it evens out a little bit. But at the same time, Gambit, they're a bit out of position. Notice Nick, he's coming from the mid lane. Rest of the Gambit members are either in top lane for Kuban with teleport or down here towards the blue buff. First of all, you don't want to stand on the side of the blue buff if you can avoid it because it now opens up for your mid lane. And Super Crew will later on move in and actually take it because Gambit now is out of position. We just roll the clip here in Jiri. What do you actually see when they start here? Did you know from the start it was going to be bad for Gambit?
Yeah, like I said before, they have a late game bomb and they should just leave it. And TP comes down from Mimer and they just catch an IQ. He has no flash because they burned it with the Java ult before. So it was just a clean fight from SDQ and they were out of position here, basically.
And right after again, because Gambit is standing at their own blue buff, Subaku just push up to this mid lane, take the mid tower, second one they get because Gambit is standing on the wrong side of the dragon. And it's communication issues, and it seems just like the synergy isn't there either. I mean, Kuban, he didn't teleport down because there was no reason to do it. Nick was out of position, got caught out. Kuban could never join in, so you were in a disadvantage from the start, which ends up, again, costing them a lot of gold. They fall behind, lose towers, lose dragons, and will never get to the late game point.
Jerry, do you understand the way Gambit's playing right now? Because obviously you might know the sentiment. They know that they are no longer able to get the playoffs, so maybe you'd imagine that they would just go loose and try a lot of things in those games, but they just seem to be on the back foot.
Yeah, they can also do that, but I think in this game they should really stall. But I mean, if you have the mentality that the games don't really matter, you can do some crazy stuff, but it didn't pay off this time, so... Yeah.
It didn't. Well, thank you very much, guys. We're going to head back over to Demon and Quickshot to get ready for Game 2.
Thank you very much, Shox. And it is indeed time for our next game, which is between the SK Gaming and Roccat. Currently, SK Gaming lead the head-to-head 2-1, which is something they will want to hold on to, as Roccat are tied with them in the table currently in 5th place. Yesterday, of course, SK Gaming played against the Super Hot Crew, who we just saw defeat Gambit. It was a closely fought match, which was decided by a bad call at the Baron. They lost the fight, and the game was, of course, out of their hands from then on. As a team, you have to wonder if SK Gaming are now spiraling out of control. They're on a 5-game losing streak, and their confidence, well, it just seems to be non-existent.
I actually agree with you. And in the match yesterday, SK actually held even in that very, very long laning phase. And despite losing small trades here and there, they actually contained the Super Hot Crew up until about the 30-minute mark. The problem for SK was they just didn't make any strong plays. They reacted to Super Hot Crew initiating fights, and they never dictated the tempo or started things themselves. I think the biggest mistake was that Baron call that you mentioned, Lee. They simply hung around far too long. They didn't know what they wanted to do. They didn't stick to Baron. They didn't peel for a fight. So SK got aced, they lost Baron, and from then on their spurts were even more broken. There is one positive from yesterday's game that I do want to highlight, and it was Jesiz playing fantastically on Ziggs. He had a strong showing. He'll need to do the same or better to help SK, and he can't afford to make the mistakes he made last week when playing Twisted Fate. SK have got individual and team problems that they need to resolve now against Roccat.
Well, Roccat managed a win yesterday against Gambit Gaming. However, it was far from convincing. While they never appeared to be losing the game, particularly, they were certainly in no hurry to finish it either. And they played very cautiously throughout, but they got the win.
They did, and it was very patient. It was very controlled. I was personally impressed by the safety and the reservation in their play because while it was slow, they did continue to push objectives. They didn't put themselves in positions where they could get punished. And against maybe stronger opponents, they could have found weaknesses, but Gambit couldn't. We do have to highlight Xaxus. He played Maokai top for the first time in Europe. He had a very strong showing. He went as far as to say that Maokai top is second only to Gragas in the top lane. And I'm interested to see if it makes it through picks and bans, if he picks it again. And also, just quickly before we move on to picks and bans, Rockat's bottom lane of Celaver and VandeR have really stepped up their performances in the last weeks. Their stats are looking impressive. Celaver is no longer getting bullied and dumpstered in every single game that he plays, and they're actually becoming a threat that teams need to pay attention to. So we'll see if they can have a strong showing this match as well.
Yeah, big performance needed from nRated and CandyPanda as well. Let's not forget that. Of course, SK Gaming's nRated thinks the Roccat's issues in adapting to the meta have put them in their win-loss streak, while on the other side of the rift, Overpow sees issues with SK's bottom lane.
Roccat can play well one day and play terrible another day. It's just how they are. I'm not sure why we are always on this losing or winning streak, but we have to work on it.
I think it has a lot to do with their preparation and everything they put into the game, also the meta. They kind of figure out one sort of play style that fits them, and people figure out, okay, that's what they play, so they ban certain things and they can't handle that.
I think their bottom lane isn't really that great. In the past, they were playing with Svenskeren 3 versus 2 all the time, and now even if they do so, they often don't take kills, and I think it's a major problem for them as well, because like the bottom lane winning was everything for them.
In the past, we always outsmarted them in the bans, but the problem is that we're all divided right now when it comes to what we should ban and what we should pick. I hope we'll make good use of their current form and we'll beat them.
Interesting words from Freddy there. They're currently divided on what I should ban. And, you know, talked about how they used to beat them in the pick and ban phase. We used to talk about how strong SK were in pick and bans.
If they're divided in picks and bans, which is the core, the beginning of competitive league,
what they like in
how
the game.
deep does it go? Because if you can't even decide what comp you want to play, how do you determine what is the right course? So maybe problems run even deeper than we think.
Well, we'll see how this one works out. Let's check out the 2 starting lineups for these teams. Over on the blue side for SK Gaming, it does mean the top lane is Freddy, the captain, I think is safe to say, of the team. Svenskeren in the jungle, Jesiz in the mid lane, CandyPanda in the AD carry, and nRated alongside him in support.
And on the red side, it is Roccat, with Xaxus, who played the tree yesterday in the top lane, Jankos in the jungle, Overpow in the mid lane, Celaver as the AD carry, and VandeR as the support.
So as we prepare for picks and bans, let's see how you called this game according to LOLesports.com. 58% of you now voted for Roccat. That just shows you what this SK losing streak is. This is the team that won the spring split. Well, came second.
Second split. Yeah, I was like, hang on a second.
They won the league, but they came second in the playoffs.
Won the league, they won the regular season, placed second in playoffs behind Fnatic 3-1, and truthfully have been in a downward spiral since then. SK have not been looking threatening for several weeks as a team and as individual players. And Roccat and SK are completely tied in the standings at 11 and 12. So Roccat will be wanting to get that point advantage, if they can, by picking up a win here and forcing SK, which is basically like a 2-point swing, 1 win up, 1 loss down. But for Roccat to do this, they need to be a little more decisive than they were yesterday. It took a long time to close against Roccat, against Gambit. I don't know if they can give SK the same amount of time or the same amount of goals.
It's definitely a tough one for both teams. It is currently a battle for 5th place and would almost secure their position in the playoffs should either team win this one. Big yawns coming out of SK Gaming. Freddy and Svenskeren both yawning away there. Picks and bans coming through, though. We do see an AD carry ban in there. Cogmore taken away. Sure, Celaver would have gone towards that one myself. I think Corky's more his style these days, but we'll see. Fizz and Kassadin also taken away. Kassadin banned on the blue side. Take note of that one. Orianna and Twisted Fate being taken away by Roccat. Final ban to come through. Will we see maybe even a focus on Ziggs or Ahri?
Yeah, so all of the jungle picks are still up, as you've also highlighted. Ziggs, Ahri, Xerath is still in the mix. And while Celaver is not an AD carry would traditionally say Cogmore, he did run it yesterday, which is arguably part of the reason they're taking that one off the table. This was something Freddy was saying in the picks and bans, how they can't decide on what they want to lock, and finding something comfortable for CandyPanda. That is a very, very high priority pick here for SK Gaming, and they've given away what Xaxus considers the #1 top laner in Gragas, and they've given Jankos a super comfort pick in Lee Sin.
Yeah. I'm not sure Tristan, you know, like, literally you would look at Celaver's history and say, would he pick this one? No, he wouldn't.
Yep.
Why would you first pick it? I'm confused by that one from SK Gaming. Nevertheless, we do see, of course, as you mentioned, Gragas Lee Sin. Braum did sneak through as well. That's been locked in for nRated. So it's going to be a Braum Tristana lane and a Nidalee. That's going to be for Freddy, I believe, in the top lane. We saw him playing it last week.
Braum Tristana becomes a super kill lane once they get their ultimates. There's so much damage on them, and the range from Tristana gets very difficult to deal with in the 2v2s. You've also got great protection from Braum's ultimate when it comes to team fights, and I actually liked how Freddy handled Nidalee last week when he played her. Pretty sure it was last week. Strong showing, and was very mobile, was able to kite. It was against Millennium, and he caused difficulties for Millennium, but because Millennium had so much hard engage, it allowed them to deal with him very, very effectively. But I want to highlight just how quickly SK have locked their champions in. We talked about, or Freddy talked about maybe some dissent in terms of picks and bans, but this is a very rapid-fire pick-ban phase for SK Gaming.
It's funny, you know, because the players come out of those question sessions where they're obviously recorded, they're giving their answers, and clearly it brings a lot of things to light for them. Because obviously we heard Freddy talking about the pick and ban phase, suddenly they've probably come out of that and said, guys, we actually do have a problem in our pick and ban phase. Maybe they've discussed it, maybe they've sorted it out. They were all very decisive. As you say, every champion locked in very quickly this time around from SK Gaming.
Yeah, and I like the fact that SK have got a fairly strong siege team put together. If Tristana can get the backup of Braum and Lise and have Nidalee and Ziggs laying for wave clear and poke, they can push Roccat to their towers and force them to deal with a lot of range damage. If, however, Freddy's going to build the Bruiser Nidalee, which is what we're expecting, they can also split push fairly effectively. That explosive shot from Tristana is quite effective at clearing waves. If Ziggs can put some damage down and you just get that splash AoE clearing the towers out. SK do not want to get jumped on. Ooh. With a Nidalee, with a Ziggs, they're not looking to be engaged upon, and that's where the defensive support of Braum comes in.
Oh, switch around here for Roccat. That means it's going to be Aurelia in the top lane and Gragas in the mid lane for Overpow. So it's going to be Nidalee versus Aurelia, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Aurelia pretty much dumpsters that lane.
Should be able to, without jungle interference. If Svenskeren decides to camp that top lane, can help Freddy out. But one of the things is, this is of course reworked Nidalee.
Yeah,
so
it is a different Nidalee.
Old Nidalee, yes. New Nidalee, we need to see. We need to actually see how the LCS pros handle it. I also think, if memory serves, once rework Gragas was enabled, Overpow was the first one to run an AP in the mid lane as well, about 3 weeks ago, if memory serves. And it worked fairly effectively. He built some damage up. He did quite a good job. There's going to be wave clear from Overpow and Gragas, but they definitely don't want to be put into a split push situation unless Xaxus is ahead. So we need to see which top laner can become more impactful. They're going to create thorns in their opponent's sides.
Well, interesting pick and ban phase for both teams. Have these 10 champions that have now changed your mind about who you think will win this one. Tweet at LOL Esports. Use the hashtag SKWin or hashtag ROCWin for, of course, SK or Roccat. And we'll be checking those results in just a minute. Interesting way around this time around. Of course, big game for both teams. Honestly, SK Gaming, they on a 5-game losing streak, so absolutely want to pick up a win here. Roccat themselves have actually not been too bad lately. They did have a rough last week, of course, but they came up against Alliance and Fnatic, so you can't discredit them too much. What do we think coming into this one? Who's really got the mental edge, more importantly?
I would say Roccat. I think because Roccat picked up a win yesterday and a fairly controlled win, you have to feel that they'll have the mental edge. But in terms of champion composition, I think they may have a slightly higher mid-game power spike. So let's see if they can actually make use of that in-game.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Game 2 of the day underway as SK Gaming start out as the blue team up against the Roccat as the red team. Interesting choices in the pick and ban. Tristana first pick. Let's see if that's all important for CandyPanda. Of course, it does cast all the way back to Season 1 power spikes for Tristana, and that's where CandyPanda excelled, honestly, way back in Game.D. It was the name, I believe. nRated, of course. These players have got a lot of history. Played all 4 seasons of the LCS, and they use that experience to get SK out of the rut that they are currently in.
Something that Jat says, which I absolutely love, is when you look at picks and bans and you look at first pick champions, that champion has to be instrumental for your team, especially when you give up very powerful champions, in the form of both Gragas and Lee Sin. Now it's Gragas mid, not Gragas top, which is what we're expecting. But this is the counterbalance we need to keep an eye on. Can SK Gaming contain and control Jankos and Overpow? Because that is what they gave up at the cost of CandyPanda. And you mentioned the fact that Aurelia might have a pretty good time against this Nidalee in the top lane. So where does Svenskeren focus his attention? Helping Freddy get to that monstrous bruiser split push Nidalee stage? Or does he want to try and help CandyPanda get to the mid to late game as quickly as possible? Tristana does fairly well early, falls off a little in the mid game, and then spikes again late. Whereas Celaver and Corki will have a much more powerful mid-game and will fall off a little late in contrast to Tristana. So it's those different playstyles and the decisions that SK have to make depending on how these next few minutes of gameplay plays out.
So here we go. Let's see. No invades, no aggression, no early anything from either team. So playing it very cautiously. Standard lanes also setting out. Of course, we had lane switches in the previous matchup. Nothing coming down in this one. Let's see who feels more confident. CandyPanda taking some quick burst damage, quickly turns around. Was that an explosive shot? It wasn't. Yes, it was. I can see the little X's above Celaver's head now. So standard starts from both of these players, and it's really all about who's going to hit level 2 first. You can see nRated waiting off to the side. He really wanted to be aggressive there, but was cautiously optimistic about pulling the trigger early.
Yeah, it needs to get the next minion wave before they can hit that secondary level, but CandyPanda using that explosive shot almost on cooldown, really, to just try to get some poke and some control of the lane. So this is the matchups that I feel is the most interesting, the top and the bottom lane. And we need to keep an eye on how Xaxus is going to handle himself against that mid lane. There's the level 2, just a tiny bit behind for Celaver and VandeR. And as we're getting closer to the 3.5–4 minute mark, I want to highlight that Roccat currently leads the league in both Europe and North America for securing first bloods. 18 out of their 23 games played, Roccat have secured the first kill of the game, and 10 of those 18 have actually gone to Jankos. So let's see, once Jankos gets those double buffs up, if he can do it again, because they didn't yesterday. It was Gambit that secured the kill.
Well, speaking of first bloods, Overpow taken very low there. Does manage to level up though, chugging that health bot as well, but continues to take some burst pressure from Jesiz. So Jesiz starting out very strong in this mid lane. Slightest of CS advantages, but the pressure is being applied.
To be fair, it is somewhat expected. Ziggs having the ranged auto attacks and the passive magic damage bonus every couple of spells will make Overpow's life a little more difficult. But once Overpow gets some more levels, he should theoretically be able to shove that wave out and maybe counterbalance some of the poke that Jesiz is putting down on him. But he's keeping up fairly close.
Good counter jungling coming out from Svenskeren here. Already come in, taking away the large wraith, and now look at him. Laying, waiting in prey. He's going to get a catch on towards Jankos. Does manage to get a lot of damage down towards him. Has to safeguard away. Repels. Svenskeren fancies this one. Follows through. Does not catch on towards him. Jankos, though, has to flash away.
So just as we talked about with Jankos, he's been the one that secured most first bloods. He gets picked on by Svenskeren. And what I love to see from Sven is this invade that he's moved up. There is some deep vision. Now Sven is looking for a dive on Xaxus.
Straight up on towards Xaxus. Casually walks up. He's going to go down to the tower. It's going to be a trade. And that is a good trade for Xaxus because Svenskeren should have got away, but he got stun locked on the tower.
Yes, and the flash as well. So not only did Xaxus get the kill, take away the double bust from Svenskeren, but burned his summoner spell as well. So if Roccat managed to find him in an uncomfortable position, they can punish him later on. Yesterday, I touched a lot on SK Gaming's warding. They are the worst team in the league at buying wards and at placing them, as well as destroying them. And Svenskeren in particular is the lowest jungler in the European LCS in terms of vision. So before he gave up that kill, it was nice to see the invade, the pressure on Jankos, and actually placing vision down to allow him to make more informed, smarter decisions going forward.
And of course, it did also mean Roccat got first blood once again. So, Jankos just dodging around Jesiz, continuing to put that pressure down. Lack of mana from Overpow will send him back to base. Svenskeren immediately on the counter-attack there, and he actually finds himself. CandyPanda pulling towards the tower range, and nRated has to get away there. That was a jumping, flying CandyPanda. He went a long way with that rocket jump.
Yeah, managed to get away, but nRated forced to use flash and exhaust. So summoner spell advantage definitely in favor of Roccat, but mana pools are lower on the side of Roccat. So the likelihood of really getting somebody down is a little more difficult. VandeR, if he can catch nRated out, that might be their way to secure another kill. Look at Jankos, potentially coming in around behind SK Gaming. If they stick around much longer, Jankos is going to be able to get in there. I didn't see if he still had his buffs available. No red buff on him.
No vision, though.
So this look for VandeR. VandeR can go VandeR life and land the death sentence. Maybe another kill here for Roccat. The question is, how quickly does Jankos go? He's moving in now.
VandeR moves around. There's the rocket jump already used, and nRated may will be the focus. Expecting Jankos to come around the side there. He will try and put the damage down on it, but I think he's got away. The ignite goes down. I don't think he's got enough.
No, I
think
don't think that
he's safe.
That was a flash ignite from VandeR, and it didn't secure the kill. Summoner heal used from CandyPanda, and the reason they focused him was no flash. No flash meant limited escape. Roccat made a good attempt. unfortunately did not actually close the deal out. So, nRated gets away with his life, and Celaver and VandeR a small respite in that lane.
Does mean CandyPanda had to go back early, though. Earlier than he intended. Has come back with a pickaxe instead. Celaver now backing off. Of course, he's going to be looking towards, building towards Trinity Force. At the moment, of course, Jesiz putting the pressure back on that mid lane. Will continue to poke it down there. He wants to really put pressure to Overpow, but Overpow now, now that those barrels are starting to get strong, he is going the ability power route, of course, as you'd expect with a mid lane. Gragas.
Well, let's see if Jankos is in trouble. Still no flash. Sven's caught him. That's a whole lot of damage on Jankos.
Well, Jankos caught out again, as you mentioned, putting a lot of damage down. But the red buff is the focus target. And I think this is going to be a smite fight, and it's a smite fight that SK may not want here because 3 members are closing rounds. Svenskeren gets it, Overpow blows Freddy straight in towards Xaxus, gets the slowdown on towards him, but Jankos is slow to get involved in this one. Will they follow through towards him? 4 members of Roccat, and they let SK walk away with the red.
Yeah, managed to get away. Roccat were unable to stick to a target long enough. And SK Gaming get the red buff and they get out cleanly. In the previous game, we've seen Super Hard Crew focusing down Gambit, Lee Sin jungle, and they shut it down very heavily. SK Gaming this time around are now jumping onto Jankos and putting a lot of investment and a lot of time into that top lane.
So, good start from both teams. Actually aggressive start from honestly both teams. Both looking for kills, looking to try and make some plays this time around. This bottom lane, as you can see, very even. Sheen was picked up by Celaver though when he first backed, so we'll see how he sticks around. Blue buff will be gifted across to Overpow here. Oh! Mega Inferno Bomb almost stealing away.
That was very close. That was very close indeed. And one thing I do want to highlight is how the CS advantage is in favor of Xaxus, in favor of Freddy for the time being. Xaxus is alone in the lane, so he's going to close that gap up, but he's falling behind Freddy. You can't even argue that the first blood was impactful in that because he teleported back to lane near instantly. He lost very little CS, but nevertheless, Freddy doing a good job, and last week his Nidalee was very strong. So SK Gaming have focused their attentions in the jungle and trying to make Jankos' life a little more difficult.
Freddy taking some damage here, some punishment honestly from Xaxus. He won't be enough to kill him, but it may be enough to bully him out of the lane. Freddy, of course, has only just returned to that lane, so he's going to chug him way through those potions and heal himself up.
The thing is, Xaxus burned his ultimate and 2/3 of his mana pool. So if he wants to do that again, he's going to need to regen all of that mana and obviously wait for his ultimate cooldown to come back available. Freddy can just heal himself back up over time, and as long as Freddy maintains control of his mana, it should be fine. So this could turn into a little more of a farm fest lane. And look at the Sven again, for the 3rd time, invading into Rockat's jungle. He doesn't have a ward available with him this time around. Nor does he even have a big golem to get hold of.
Oh, he's just toying with our cameraman there, Svenskeren. So I'm going to go in. No, I'm not. There's no big golem. What's the way? Why waste my time? This time around, though, they fancy a second bite of the cherry on Xaxus. They got him last time for first blood. They're not going to get him this time because he's running the hell away.
So look at that. While Svenskeren's moved to the top lane to help secure that tower, Jankos rather, is moving himself to the bottom lane. CandyPanda and nRated have been pushed into their tower. And with Celaver having Sheen, we haven't actually seen those lanes really going toe-to-toe. You know, CandyPanda and nRated playing a little more passively, but Jankos still moving in behind. So complete control of the top half of the map for SK. They're invading the jungle and they're looking to apply some focus to Overpow, but it's optimistic at best for the time being.
So currently 10 minutes into this game, CS differential is very much in favor of SK. That's why the gold difference is. You can see the 2,000 gold pushed towards them. Of course, that top turret did go down, which Freddy caused, and that's simply why he's beating out that lane of Xaxus on Aurelia. But the question is, when the team fights come around, who is going to be the more important?
I don't think SK want to have a straight-up team fight. With the Nidalee, who's going to be looking to split push and be very mobile and agile in team fights, and obviously Ziggs in the same token, if they get jumped on and separated, you know, jumped on by Aurelia and Lee and separated by Gragas, the power of SK is in their range. Tristana is going to continue to scale, get a longer and longer auto attack as she hits more levels. So SK always want to keep Roccat at arm's reach. Think of it like a really tall guy fighting a really short guy, putting his hand on his forehead and not letting his swings hit him. That's what SK will be looking for this whole fight, and we'll see if they can pull that off.
Oh, Svenskeren trying to get around quickly, but hasn't got the boots, hasn't got the mobility to get in there quick enough. Instead, he's going to roam his way back up that river. Should spot that pink ward out. Yes, he does. Good look at it this time around. Often we do see them just strolling on past, but he will cover off that. So let's have a look across the items. I think he's obviously being picked up by both mid laners. Looks like Trinity Force is actually going to get picked up by both top laners as well. So mirror items for different champions.
Yeah, but the thing is, SK, because they're ahead in CS and slightly ahead in terms of actual completed builds, they're going to be in a fairly strong position to start dictating some moves. They did not do this against Super Hot Crew yesterday because they were marginally behind. So SK were reacting to the Super Hot Crew's moves. I would like to see SK Gaming either making plays in and around the Dragon, forcing Roccat to maybe defend objectives or defend their towers. And Jesiz is doing a fairly good job at controlling Overpow. So if he can convert that control to sieging and to putting damage around buffs or dragons, for example, that's how SK can accelerate their lead and pull even further into control.
Well, we saw Svenskeren going aggressive early. He's doing it once again. Keeps on skittering his way in towards Jankos jungle. Jankos sees him coming this time around, though, expecting him to come around the side, but he's got support. Both of them do, actually. Oh, Jez has actually thrown out the satchel charge already. He hasn't got that one available to him. Overpower just sidestepping those skill shots. Will
pretty good job,
dodge out of there. Yeah, very good job at dodging them all.
So Jesiz had little mana in that trade, so Jesiz couldn't go for an all-in combat. On the same token, Overpower was able to avoid a lot of the damage. So 3v3, Jez is low in his mana pool, so let's see if SK decide to stick around. I feel that's going to be risky, especially that Xaxus has got a good position for the time being.
Too much damage on Svenskeren, has to back away from this one. Overpower doing a good job at sidestepping skill shots. This time around, though, we do see Freddy pouncing on him and clawing away, but this red buff will finally get taken away. It's going to be Jankos that will secure that with the smite. Does mean he's down, though, and SK may make a move for Dragon here now that Smite is no longer on the cards.
Yeah, and because of the fact that Xaxus and Jankos are sort of missing in the top half of the map, if CandyPanda and nRated respond quickly, they can have a tighter team fight here for this initial initiation. Xaxus has teleport, and Roccat, they're using it. Here comes Xaxus from the river.
This is a risky play for Roccat. No Smite available to try and get the steal. Instead, they just simply want to stop it. VandeR has to flash away. Dragon does get secured by SK, and now Jankos, he's in trouble. He has to get away. Xaxus locked up. He's going very low. He will be the first to drop, and now they're going to close in towards it. Satchel Charge actually blows Jankos away from him, so it's the kill and the Dragon secured easily for SK.
SK Gaming can keep Roccat at bay. That's what we talked about in terms of their team comp. As long as SK does not get collapsed on by the members of Roccat, they can control the game. Freddy was caught out by VandeR's death sentence, and as VandeR followed it through with the secondary active, Freddy just leaped back into the middle of his team, pulled Thresh all the way back, and Roccat would just split up. They were so split in the river, SK could pick their targets, and they got the Dragon clean.
Overpow going to keep on chunking down those wraiths. Jesiz continues to stack out those items. Source Boots now completed. So slight item ahead of Overpower, yet to go back and buy, of course. Infinity Edge completed by CandyPanda. That's a big power spike for the AD carry. Trinity Force is also picked up by Freddy. You can see both Xaxus and Celaver working towards that one. Overpower being controlled nicely by Jesiz in this mid lane. Satchel Charge bouncing him away, and Overpower at the moment is fairly helpless against Jeziz's Ziggs.
Yeah, it's a difficult matchup, but it's also Overpower is looking for the wave clear. He's also looking to control team fights a little more frequently, bouncing people away. And that previous fight, Roccat were just not in the right position to contest. I think they reacted a little too late to the call, and for SK Gaming, it was very smart. We talked about how if SK wants to win this game, they need to be more proactive. They need to be more in charge of their decision-making. And knowing Jankos didn't have Smite was a smart call to force the team fight, and they got away with it. And SK can extend even further ahead, because they're going to get the second tower. Roccat are 5,000 gold down right now.
Oh, VandeR taking some serious punishment here. Everything being blocked out by nRated. This bottom lane pairing that was called out by Roccat in the opening segment is very much living up to their hype right now. It's a 4,500 gold lead built up by SK Game, which is slowly starting to spiral. Well, it's now 5,500 gold lead because they did just take that second objective. Oh, Jesiz, he's in trouble. Oh, good satchel charge into a belly slam straight away. But again, he's home free. They're so worried about Freddy coming inside.
Yeah, there was no explosive cast from Overpow, so he's forced to back away. SK Gaming have done such a good job in the laning phase. They've got CS advantages for every single one of their carries, which is translated to a significant item advantage at this point. Celaver hasn't even finished his Trinity Force, nor is Xaxus. And you've got an Infinity Edge in CandyPanda and a Trinity Force on Freddy. So that gold lead continues to grow, and Roccat have just been controlled. They've been you know, pushed around, and SK are looking much stronger this match than they did yesterday.
Yeah, they've clearly done something overnight that's worked out for them. They're looking a little bit more confident in this matchup. It's a match they absolutely need to win. Roccat, of course, tied with them in 5th place currently. This would put SK secure in the playoffs. It's a position they held the #1 seed in last spring. Of course, they lost out to Fnatic in the final in the end, but nevertheless, they put in a fantastic performance, and more importantly, it ends that 5-game loss streak. But it's a long way to go, ladies and gentlemen. 6,000 gold is the differential between these two teams, just 17.5 minutes in.
The thing is, Roccat are a team that struggle from time to time, you know?
They're the team that struggles when they're not in the lead, that's for sure. nRated, just blocking out, no damage really going down on towards him. That death sentence was not followed up. And SK, they're starting to exert their control. They've been pretty much running rings around this top half of the jungle for the last sort of 10 minutes of this game.
It's actually very reminiscent of what the Super Hot Crew did. If you think of the previous game, Jankos wants to fight.
Do not want, tries to get away, gets stunned out, Freddy pounces through, gets himself the kill. VandeR now locked in there, he's going to get stunned out. One more basic attack will be enough, there it is, Freddy gets on towards it, he gets himself the double. These two see the bomb pouncing through, Xaxus forced away from this one. And as we just mentioned, SK, they have full control of Roccat's jungle.
They really do. CandyPanda going very defensive there. Trinity Force versus iEdge. He's actually used that Buster Shot already. Now the rest of SK, they're pushing the top lane. Look at all of the wards on the mini-map. Ladies and gentlemen, from yesterday to today, SK Gaming have figured out and remembered that if you buy wards, use them correctly, you can control the game. With the massive gold lead that they've afforded themselves, they've got absolute vision control, and they can continue playing aggressively. That's another tower secured, and Jesiz may even be able to take the 5th of the game for SK.
Yeah, he's just very close to taking it. The rest of his team are rotating around. They're just taking the red buff right now. Doesn't look like they're going to get it this time around, but a lot of damage was done to it. Bottom turret is also being pressured. CandyPanda sticking around maybe a little bit too long here. VandeR throws out the lantern. Jankos follows it through, but he's home free. Rocket jump will be back available. He's got flash and heal if he needs it.
Moby boots as well.
Well, I don't think he's going to get close enough. I think CandyPanda is clean, yeah.
So, good wave. You know, good split pushing there from CandyPanda. Shoving up the side lane while the rest of the team gets a tower in the top and drops the middle tower to around 200 odd hit points. And SK have now got a 9,000 gold lead, 8,000 gold. A lot of gold lead.
Maths is hard.
I don't know why I keep doing it. I haven't learned. But at 20 minutes in the game, Roccat have completely been controlled. And, you know, yesterday when we looked at Roccat playing against Gambit, maybe it wasn't necessarily... that was
nearly.
Maybe it wasn't necessarily playing safe and controlled. Maybe Roccat were just very slow and indecisive, and it was a weaker opponent being Gambit being bullied. Because SK are looking much stronger, and they pushed Super Hot Crew yesterday, don't forget.
Oh, Jankos.
30-minute laning phase, and they were even with the Super Hot Crew yesterday.
Well, they're not going to go for it. Dragon is now up. I think SK certainly will go for that. Overpow did just start backing away. This is a tricky fight for SK, actually. Roccat are there in numbers. Now the teleport comes in. Overpow dashing away from this one. nRated lands the passive on towards him. Just enough to try and knock him up there. He will get the flash away. One more hit should be enough. That'll just go straight for the ultimate. nRated secures himself his first kill.
And it's going to be another tower for SK, potentially 2. The middle tower went down to minions a moment or two ago, so SK are going to get the last inner turret at 20 minutes on the clock. And this is very reminiscent of an SK Gaming that could win laning phase and close the game out so decisively. It's been a very, very long time since we've seen them do that, but they're in a position to. They've got an item lead. The theoretical disadvantages that they had on paper in terms of champions have been circumnavigated because they've got a 12,000 gold lead, both of the Dragons, 6 towers to 0. And Roccat are dancing to SK's beats.
Yeah, this is very much a dominant SK Gaming. Where have you been for the last few weeks? That's what the SK fans will be wondering, but right now they are looking in confident form. Remember, they finished a number of games in 25 minutes. They used to hold a lot of records here in Europe for the speedy games. They had the shortest average game time as well, but over the last few weeks that has dwindled away.
Yeah, and something that like is quite showing or quite telling from Roccat is that previous engagement, Jankos sort of stuck around for a fight that they had already lost in their red buff, you know, the replay of the fight in the bottom blue buff area. And if you look at all of the magic penetration that Svenskeren has already built up, with the guys, the Sorcerer's Shoes, and obviously Spirit of the Spectral Wraith, Jankos just got melted. He's got hit points from Sightstone. No additional MR. He hasn't even bought boots yet. And Jankos simply can't stand toe-to-toe with his opposite number because in Svenskeren, rather, is just so far ahead.
Yeah, and he's been in Jankos' jungle the entire time. He has been there. He has been the man that started the fights. We saw it right early on in the start when he managed to land that cocoon on towards Jankos and force him to flash away. Freddy going to shove in that top wave. The inhibitor turrets are the next focus target. Will SK try and force Roccat to try and face check in towards this Baron area, and bullying them away and sweeping out every single little bit of vision that Roccat currently hold. That is all going to disappear now as SK start choking them out.
Yeah, and I want to also highlight that not only is the Haunting guys on Sven, but Jesiz picked it up, Freddy picked it up as well. So with the very big lead they've built up, they've invested smaller portions of gold into instantaneous power. There's not even a lot of MR on Rockat's side, so they're going to be taking even more damage from all of the ability-powered spells that SK Gaming are throwing out. It's quite a smart idea to ensure that you continue to hold the lead and have the advantage in those team fights, because if Roccat pick up MR, they need to do more so to burn through that penetration that's been picked up for SK Gaming. I'd love to see how many wards SK have bought and placed this game, in contrast to their last 5-game winning streak, losing streak, because every time you look at the minimap, SK have got a multitude of wards all over the jungle, and I don't recall seeing that in any of their previous games.
Interesting. Freddy pounced over the Baron bit, then quickly thought, oh, hang on a minute, we need to go back. Now they're going to go in towards the Baron. Now the call's been made. They've got themselves full vision control of the jungle area. They're trying two-man, by the way. CandyPanda coming up the mid lane. Jesiz keeping them busy in there. Now we're going to see Xaxus. He's going to try and take a peek in towards this pit. He will get spotted coming around there. Does get the ward down. They can see it's a two-man Baron, and they're not far off completing this one. nRated running interference. Gets caught out. He doesn't care about that one. He's simply blocking the rest of the team out. He's going to take all he can. Xaxus now comes around there. Baron's taking very low. Xaxus going to get locked up. They peeled out of it, and instead they're going to get themselves a kill. nRated does go down, but he doesn't care. He's done enough for his team. Now Celaver trying to turn some of that damage around. He's got Freddy pouncing in towards him. Lack of mana may well stop him. Celaver taking low. Flash from Svenskeren. Not quite going to get themselves the kill. The spider skitters on through, and it is just a 1-for-1. The top laner for the support. And SK, well, they almost managed to sneak that Baron out. Wasn't quite enough.
Yeah, so even though Roccat come out probably worse after losing their top laner for support, they did interrupt the Baron. So it was a small win. But at 12,000 gold down, Roccat need much bigger wins to pull themselves back into it. After the last time we talked about items, Xaxus has still only added a chain vest to his completed Trinity Force. And Celaver's got the makings of a Last Whisper, but nothing completed yet. So item-wise, Roccat are so far behind. Overpow is a Death Cap and a Haunting guys behind. He's got one Seeker's Arm Guard to try and counterbalance the damage from SK, but there's 3 magic damage threats from SK, so it's a very difficult position for Roccat to be in. And just another fairly controlled, fairly one-sided game on Friday, week 10.
Radiant's Omen now pops in for Freddy as well. So he goes back down.
Just a small advantage.
It's just a small one. So he's going to wipe out that bottom wave, and SK Gaming continue to just shove every single lane. This is something they've been lacking, honestly. And a lot of teams have been lacking. Once they start baiting around that Baron, they forget, you know what, guys, we need to shove all the lanes in first before we start doing this one. Instead, they just meander around there and have a little dance. Jankos peeking off the side, shows himself, gets the vision, Death Sentence lands, but will not be followed up by VandeR and Jankos. Overpow, he's got to start dodging them bouncing bombs.
And over and above pushing the lanes that you were highlighting that teams need to do, this is the first time SK has been able to outclass their opponents individually. You know, the members of SK Gaming in this game have won their respective lanes, or gone even in the case of CandyPanda versus Celaver, but then once the Dragon fight came about, CandyPanda got the advantage to now accelerate ahead in CS and presence on the lane. So SK have finally found some rhythm or found some confidence where they can actually defeat their opponents one-on-one, and that is now translating to map control as well.
And a pause. So we'll see who exactly it is that's caused it. SK are looking pretty confident, so I think it is Roccat indeed. So VandeR looks like he's got an issue of some variety. We'll see what that is. It's potentially the 12,000 gold difference between the two teams is.
I'm afraid we can't do anything about
maybe what he's wondering about. Not really much I can help you with. Maybe that's what the referee's saying is, I can't help you, mate. I can't give you anything for that one.
It's so difficult if you look at this game because it accelerated in control of SK very quickly. The laning phase was fairly even, despite SK pulling a couple of CS ahead, a couple of CS ahead. And then after that first dragon, SK just strung together multiple objectives. They got dragons, they got towers, they invaded for Rockat's red buff. And Roccat had no answer. Roccat were unable to defend or contest those objectives. And that's where the control came from. And that then just snowballed and accelerated even further.
It looks like it's probably just going to be a client restart, I'm going to guess. Actually, no, there's a discussion, so we'll see what it is in just a few moments. Yeah, you can see. Of course. He is just going to reconnect, so simple restart.
There's the answer.
Having trouble placing wards, apparently. And that's a pretty big deal for support.
It is, especially when the only thing you can do at the moment is ward. You know, on the side of VandeR, he's landed a few death sentences, but his team's so far behind, it's so risky to engage. And again, one big dragon fight. I'd actually love to hear post-game with whoever we interview or talk about how that first dragon fight went, where SK peeled from the mid lane, instantly went dragon, and Roccat decided to engage when they were split. It was a late teleport.
They had nothing to really... They just simply were trying to delay.
Exactly.
And then engaged.
So I think that is arguably the point where SK stamped their complete authority on the game. But it's been a good performance, and as long as this keeps up, SK Gaming will be breaking that 5-game losing streak.
It's something they need to do when the rest of the teams, you know, looking at Millennium and Super Hot Crew, they keep on picking up wins. Super Hot Crew just took down Gambit. They're now secured in 3rd place. Of course, Millennium also ahead of them as well. It was just 1 game yesterday. It's now 2, of course, because Millennium's successful victory yesterday. A very good performance, honestly. A solid performance from Millennium. And looking in towards the playoffs, of course, don't forget it is 3rd that will play 6th. And then 4th will play 5th in the quarterfinals, which will be happening in the studios. You can, of course, get on to lolesports.com and get tickets for that matchup. At the moment, the top 2 currently are Alliance versus Fnatic. We'll see whether that stays true, because Super Week next week is a biggie for every team involved.
It really is. And it is still possible for Fnatic to lose their 2nd place seed. If they lose their next 5 games, it is not that big enough of a cushion for the rest of the teams to catch up. And it does look like we're back in game.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's hope for the best.
Let's see if he can put a ward down. No. No.
Apparently not, I'm afraid.
I mean, it's a pretty easy fake check.
Pretty easy test.
Nope, not going down.
Double check if Smartcast is enabled or...
Is your key working? I think you just pressed number 2 there. Yes, I could see him pressing number 2.
That's oh no, that makes sense. It's in the 2nd item slot.
Well, it doesn't really count for what we see.
No.
It would be more of what he's got.
Touche, actually.
Actually is not going to show me.
So I think I just want to highlight the differences in the tables right now, because SK and Roccat are both at 11 and 12. 11 wins, 12 losses. And the teams that they're chasing is Millennium at 13 and 10, and the Super Hot Crew at 14 and 10. So SK Gaming and Roccat both have 2 losses more than the respective opponents in this table battle. And they need to make sure that they don't continue losing games, because if they do, they are all of a sudden getting closer to the Copenhagen Wolves, who are at 7 and 16. Can the Wolves upset Alliance in this next game? They've done it before.
Done it twice before, I believe.
So we need to see, you know, it is a very real possibility that teams can slide and shuffle. And these are the teams, SK, Roccat, and the Wolves, they're going to be battling for that sort of 5th, 6th position by the end of Super Week next week.
Well, we'll find out who it is. And of course, you know, there's a lot of matchups in there. And you could say, you know, if it was 3rd, maybe Super Hot Crew currently in there looking at 6th, maybe it was a Roccat or a SK game. And, you know, we had SK versus Super Hot Crew yesterday. It was a close affair. So even if it is the 3rd versus 6th quarterfinal, the teams are still very, very close in that mid-range.
So if we talk about the performances of yesterday and today, SK have looked better in both of the games we've seen right now than Roccat have. Yes, Roccat took down Gambit, but Gambit are not looking threatening at all. And Roccat took a very long time to win that game. So the bigger picture is SK have looked stronger this week in their games. And if they can get some confidence from yesterday's game, obviously it's implying in this game, maybe for Super Week, they can make a strong run in their last 4 matches to get a playoff seed.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, that is the big deal. That's what everybody's aiming for, of course. Gamescom is looming. The regionals will be played there once again. Of course, it's been there for the last 2 years now. It's always a fantastic venue for these matches. And you guys at home, of course, can go over and get tickets. You'd have to visit the Gamescom site for them if you want to see the semi-finals and finals over there. And, of course, the international wildcard will be happening. Again, the likes of the Australians, the Brazilians over, and the CIS team. We're going to get Flash in the Night back over again. We've seen him a number of times, the Russian players.
I also want to highlight that, like, SK Gaming in Season 2 took down Fnatic in the semi-finals.
Yeah.
It was quite an upset victory.
There's been a lot of upsets at Gamescom in the past.
Led by Ocelot on Orianna, and I quite remember that series, or I remember that series quite well. And also the stories around it, how Gambit was scrimming with SK super hard in preparation for the tournament. Fortunately, in the final, we've seen SK getting smashed.
They were at Worlds.
It was M5. It was M5 back then.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, there is always the possibility of an upset. And when we go into the quarterfinals here in the studio in 2 weeks' time, teams like Roccat, SK, Millennium, and the Super Hot crew are the ones that are going to be looking to create those upsets. Because, of course, whoever finishes first and second, which is looking like Alliance and Fnatic, they get their buy into the semifinals. They get to watch the other 4 teams and plan and counter-strat and prepare what they want to do. And it's up to these 4 guys that we're thinking to cause an upset or cause surprises.
Yeah, and the top 2 spots, we cannot sort of discount how important they are, because it means you obviously don't play in that quarterfinals. You go straight to Gamescom. You get yourself a full week's practice over everybody else. You can just sit back and watch the quarterfinals, watch them happen, see who you're playing against, prepare for the new patch.
And of course, it gets even more important than that, not only for the playoffs, but for the 3 teams that qualify from Worlds. You really want to finish as high up as possible because of the group draw, because of, you know, the Worlds format this year is different from last year. You know, there is legitimate reasons to finish higher up the table.
You want to be the #1 seed in Europe. I mean, everybody wants to do that anyway.
Of course.
Big guy there. Of course, Fnatic have held that position for the last 3 seasons, 3 splits running. Can they do it again? That's the question. They saw Alliance yesterday. There's a lot to go on. Alliance did beat them, and Alliance are top of the table. That super team, it's taken a year to get there. We've got the likes of Super Hot Crew. Roccat, of course, coming through. These are all new teams, you know, and everybody talks about EU LCS and how sometimes they haven't got the big star players. That's because there's a changing of the old guard, ladies and gentlemen. The old teams are going out, the new teams are coming in. There's a lot of new players. We heard Roccat yesterday talking about their fan base, you know, how they've come through. They finished 3rd last split.
Yeah, we're in a transitionary phase. And for Alliance in particular, while they're doing fantastic in the LCS at the moment and in the best-of-1 format, you have to question their ability in best-of-3s. You look at the Fnatic squad, 4 out of 5 of those members, hell, even Reckless has international experience if you go back to IPL 5. They have experience in best-of-3s. They have experience in now what is best-of-5s for our playoffs. How will Alliance perform under the lights, multiple games back-to-back, when the pressure is on? Because in playoffs in spring, they looked shaky at best.
Yeah.
They lost to Roccat in the 3rd, 4th decider game, and I was not anticipating that at all.
In fairness, Alliance looked shaky all spring. It wasn't just that. They've been a very different team in the summer, I think. The focus is definitely on them. And I know, even talking to some of the teams, you know, if they do qualify, they've all got some really big plans this time around. Everything has changed for me in League of Legends. You know, the analysts are now in there. People are talking about boot camping in Korea, over in China, you know, all these different locations. This is something that was unheard of 1 season, 2 seasons ago.
Well, it's lucky to have a competitive scene that is that diverse. I actually believe the Brazilian team that qualified has been over in Europe scrimming as well over the last week or 2 in anticipation of Gamescom, in anticipation of the international wildcard tournament that we're going to be running for those seeds. So the real question is not only can they do it, but it's how much growth you can gain in a short space of time. Because you play against these different opponents, you play against different regions. It's one of the things that I love debating is the shift in mentality based on culture. The language you speak, the lifestyle you live, changes your viewpoint and your approach. If you think one thing's OP, that's something that Europe does even differently to many other regions.
Oh, yes.
Top laners, looking at champions, looking at play styles. And once you get this melting pot all coming together, whatever really is the best comes out and shines.
Yeah, and it's the different play styles that I personally like, because I like seeing the aggressive styles that sometimes the Chinese teams will bring to the table. It's something we used to see a lot from the European teams, but they haven't been as aggressive. There's still very aggressive teams in there. Fnatic will go at you if they're given a chance, and Millennium, well, we saw them yesterday, just how aggressive they can be. It's interesting for me what teams will get through to the European regionals, who will qualify, who will get to Worlds, because who will represent the European region. Of course, you guys all watching right now are obviously fans of the European region. We want to know who's going to represent us, because Europe have, in the past, finished third. In Season 2, finished third. In Season 3, hell, they won Season 1. We've always done well at Worlds. Who is going to represent us this time around in 2014?
I feel that obviously Alliance Fnatic have to be the forerunners, and out of the 4 teams remaining, for me it's Super Crew Millennium. For me, it's going to be one of those two, because SK and Roccat have been so shaky at different times. I do feel that it's going to be on Millennium or Super Hot Crew to be the young upstarts that will be the lemon dogs, so to speak, of 2014.
Yeah, where did they ever go, eh? Long time ago. Well, we sort things out, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to send it over to Xaxus and Deficio, who will have Creaton with them this time around.
Thank you very much, D-Man. Well, indeed, you're talking about one of those front runners for qualifying for Worlds, and it might be Creaton here in Millennium. Let's actually take a look at this game first, because this is an SK we haven't seen for the last couple of weeks. What do you guys attribute it to? Because the picks haven't been all that different, Creaton.
I think they prepared for Roccat pretty well, because for me, Jankos is the main player of Roccat, and he's usually making plays early game. That's why they have like the sick percentage of first bloods in the league, and he was just completely getting cut off in the jungle by Svenskeren, and they had like 2 losing lanes, top lane, because Nidalee is kind of bully lane on Aurelia, and the same goes with Ziggs versus Gragas, so he kind of had to help those lanes, but he couldn't, and they just fell behind.
And also Svenskeren on Elise now, you can build Spectral Waves as your first item, makes you very strong in these one-on-ones. So you just kept walking in the jungle, found Jankos, and he knew if Jankos tried to fight against him, his laners, both Nidalee and Ziggs, could just run straight up and help him, because they had all the pressure in the mid lane. So very smart by SK Gaming to pick some strong lanes here. The mid game is a bit shaky for them compared to what Roccat has when you look just at the champions, but because SK got the lead early on, it doesn't really matter, because Roccat is so far behind. It doesn't even matter how good you are mid-game. If you're 12,000, I believe it is, 12,000 gold behind, you can't really fight.
So what is it then? Because obviously, as we mentioned, the picks weren't all that different. Is it just that you get a good start that gets you that, maybe that impulse of, oh, we can actually win this game for a change? Or what is it?
Well, obviously, good start always helps, because when you're on a losing streak, you have to clear your mind and just say next game, ignore whatever's been happening the last few weeks here, and just go into this next game, prepare as much as possible. If you do get a good start, you start believing, and you forget about the losses, and you just play. So I think for SK Gaming here, because it's working out, because the tactic they made is really working for them, they can just ignore everything and probably, at the moment, feel very confident in this game.
Well, Creaton, you of course have been in that position as well, where you guys were losing a lot of games and you had to fight back. So do you see in SK maybe something of a new spark here?
Like in this game, I don't think that SK can make us, I don't know, they have to make really huge mistakes if they want to like lose this game, but I don't think it's going to happen, because Nidalee is winning, Ziggs is winning, botlane is winning at the moment as well, like by 30 CS or something, so basically they just can go for straight 1v1s like on solo lanes, because Roccat just can't handle anything. I think like right now they are in a good position to bait Nasha, or even try to just do it and straight fight 5v5 with Roccat, because they're just so weak.
Well, let's actually take a step back. This is a middle of the table clash. You guys have secured your spot in the playoffs. It must feel great to have coming back from obviously the hand injury last year and then being on a better level here. So how has that been for you?
Of course, it's working really good. Everyone is motivated right now, and we're just looking forward to playoffs, because this is like a huge opportunity to go to World Finals. And yeah, we just want to perform better and better and show what are we capable of.
So looking towards playoffs and Gamescom, everything here, is there any team at the moment you feel you guys really handle well and you would like to play in a quarterfinal or semifinal and feel like you have the best shot at getting towards Worlds?
I think from the middle teams, at this moment, I would prefer SK Gaming, because like before this game, they were looking pretty bad, like I would say. Yesterday they had a nice game versus Super Hot Crew, but they lost, and they are so dismotivated, so I just would pick SK Gaming.
Well, as you mentioned, Super Hot Crew had a win here today. Again, you're vying with them for that 3rd place spot, and you're going to be facing Alliance later in the day, which we feel like could be a very good tactical matchup as well.
We play Fnatic.
Oh, sorry, Fnatic is what I meant.
It's the
I was
same.
thinking about the tactical matchup that we saw yesterday. It's not the same.
Almost.
The tactical matchup that we saw from them yesterday, is that something that gave you guys hope that you might be able to win this matchup?
Like, if you take a look at our games, it's just like a bloodbath everywhere. Like, kills everywhere and stuff like this. And when you look at yesterday's game, it was super close. Only objective control focused, like 0 kills. It was like really few kills. So I think we're going to see definitely more kills from them or us, because we're the kind of team that is trying to take the game over, like do some moves to take the advantage and try to snowball it. And I think, yeah, the game will be more interesting, but I'm not sure if at higher level.
So let's say in a best out of 5, with the playstyle you guys have, all or nothing pretty much, just all in, hope you can get some kills here and snowball the game. Do you maybe feel it's a bit too predictable for teams to find a counter to it, or do you feel very confident you can play your style and just win all the games?
Like, I feel more confident in best of 5 than best of 1s, because nobody can crash our team, like mentally wise, because we played a lot of best of 5 so far.
I remember.
And some long games, and we're just experienced and ready for it.
So maybe another question. I don't want to look too far forward, but if you guys were able to qualify for Worlds, which you said as a real goal now, what do you think other teams, what is your description, what is the description of Millennium as a team going in there? Would you see yourself as a wild card? Do you think that you should actually get very far in that tournament?
It depends. Like, if you look at the Worlds last year, it was kind of surprising that Samsung closed so fast, and yeah, Fnatic got so far because everyone was expecting, like, actually no, Fnatic was fine. It was the other one. Okay, never mind.
Gambit.
Yeah. But I think that we can do something, because we are really weird. We have really weird players like Kerp. He can pick everything. He can surprise people. Yeah, I guess we have a chance at least to go out of the group and then maybe surprise someone.
All right, so let's just talk about 80 carries now. We talk about Worlds, we talk about playoffs, we talk about this game here. Bump it down to 80 carries. 4.12, Lucian is disabled. You play him 12 games already in the split here. You would think you were one of the guys who would be like, oh my god, he's gone, what am I going to play here? He seems to enjoy playing Corki at the moment. What does he bring, and what does it matter now that Lucian is gone?
For me, Corki is just like a weaker version of previous Lucian. And I don't know, I lost a lot of games with Lucian actually, but yeah, I think Corki is just like a weaker Lucian from the old patch.
All right, well, thank you for that insight on 80 carries. You also mentioned Kerp, that was very unpredictable, and that's actually something that we asked our viewers here today, and you've been tweeting to us at LL Esports, because we asked who is the most unpredictable player in the European LCS and why. And here are some of the answers. The first one is from @LowBaguette88. I think that Kerp is pretty unpredictable. He played Fizz when he was out of the meta, and Zilean yesterday was phenomenal.
Well, I mean, he's your teammate, so what do you think?
Yeah, I think he had a pretty solid performance of Zilean. And he actually helped a lot for carrying the game. Like, he had huge impact during the team fights, mainly because of the speed-ups and ultimates. And like, I think he, at the Drake fight, he hit 5 people with 2 bombs, and they just melted. Like, he destroyed them.
And can I just ask, how does it work in Champs League for you guys? Is it just Kerp randomly saying, I'm going to play this champion now, and just locks it in? Or is it something you actually practice a lot? Or is this some impulse pick sometimes?
The story about Zilean is like, we saw FLICKR playing Zilean, and he was like, I'm going to play Zilean, but I will go full AP. I'm not going to play CDR and stuff like this. And in the Champion Select, I was like wondering what should we pick for mid lane. We all had our ideas. He was just silent, and then he was like, pick me Zilean.
Can't kill you in the Zilean. The second one is from @LeonMachar. Soaz is really unpredictable. If you want to see a new champ in the top lane, Soaz is the man to look at.
100%. Sometimes it backfires where he picks some really weird stuff, but normally it actually works. He's the only guy who wins on Yorick top lane here in Europe. Everyone else, they just lose. Freddy lost on it, Kubon lost on it. Soaz, he knows how to play Yorick. And we often see him actually pull out like AP champions before the rest, and then all of a sudden it becomes part of the meta. Gragas top lane was one of the deals here. Kevin played it in the last bit, was full tank. I believe Source was the first one to actually play it with some AP in Europe at least. So yeah, he pulls out some new stuff, and he has this very unique play style. He likes to roam around, he likes to make plays, and it's very hard when you talk with the other players to predict what is Source actually going to do now.
Yeah, does that, you guys are playing Fnatic obviously later in the day. Is that something that adds some extra, difficulty to preparing?
I think he has his own play style of like top laners. When there is a lane swap and they actually use lane swaps lately, he's falling behind so far, but he's always like ganking a lot and putting pressure on other people. And that's true. He's really unpredictable because he can just bring, like I remember even playing Blitzcrank top like full time. So it's just like whatever he wants to do, he does it, and he makes it work.
Yep, the last one is from @KingJake. Selfie. He has weeks where he spirals out of control, scores so many fantasy points, and weeks with the complete opposite.
It is so hard to predict what's going on with Selfie. It seems to me like it's just the decision-making for him, where sometimes he gets over-aggressive. He's like, I'm going to go for the kill here. He goes in, the rest of the team is not on the same page, or maybe they don't communicate well enough. He goes in by himself, he dies, and Super Ukraine will either lose in the game or at least fall behind and then have to fight all the way back. But we know he's a very, very strong mechanically player, and we've seen his Ari now, 2 games in a row, where he carries the game for Super Hawk. He gets so many kills on it, and he's a good player. He just needs to relax a little bit more and get some more experience so he knows there's different situations.
Yeah, I guess Ari is a perfect champ for him. And then, oh my God, I've gone too far. I'll just go back and Spirit Rush out of it. Creaton, what do you think are the main differences between you guys and the Super Hot crew, as it is your closest competitor as of now?
About Selfie or just
Selfie
about,
and in general, yeah.
Like, Selfie is kind of weird for me because he's super good. Like, his mechanics are really good, but sometimes he tends to go on tilt, in my opinion. Like, after they lose an objective or he dies or something like this, he's playing worse and worse and worse. But I think it's like more problem in his mind, because if he can fix it, he's gonna become a beast, like Froggen version 2 or something like this. And Super Hot Crew in general, it's really hard to say, but I would agree that they're not on the same page with Selfie sometimes, like during the games.
Well, you mentioned that mental aspect. You have been in the scene for a long time, obviously. Do you guys get help from any aspect? We know that SK has a sports psychologist, or is that something you just have to deal with on your own?
I have help from my family, and for me it's enough. Like, I don't really care about third people punishing me for something like on the internet. Like, I don't take it to myself, and I just think positive. Like, yeah, mostly my family and of course the team.
And how much as a team, like, we often see teams where it's a work relationship. We see some teams where they're very good friends. How does it work here in Millennium? Are you guys all very close friends, or do you just come together and practice and then go back to your own place?
No, we are really good friends, actually. Like, we hang out together, we do basically everything together, and I think that's really important, and that's actually keeping us together, because if we would be just like a work relationship, I think we would fall apart, like, even in the last split when we are doing so bad, but we were able to cheer each other up, and we came up winning the relegation.
Yeah, because you mentioned it as well, you're in the house together, you train together all the time, and as SK has mentioned, we got complacent in the video. We weren't motivated that much anymore. Is that something you still struggle with? Because you have in the past, you have admitted, I haven't found my motivation, and now you found it back.
I think it's for everyone individual. Like, I found my motivation when I was watching All-Stars, and I really wanted to play against Korean and Chinese players. And I think, yeah, it's up to everyone. Sometimes I'm playing 7 hours a day, sometimes I'm playing 2 hours. It's just like, I think everyone has to find his, like, a way to motivate himself, because if you are not motivated, I don't think you can get everything from the practice.
All right, well, thank you very much, and also for joining us in this, what seems like an interview that's gone a couple of hours. Very good insight. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to take a quick break while we sort out the technical difficulties, but we'll return with more LCS action in just a moment.